no matter what success I'm receiving, I'm still or was in the mix a little bit. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting to like walk into an event in a party and like you just were in fader. And you
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Awesome, Lawrence. Thank you so much again for doing this.
thank
Again,
you.
it's about you, your journey in music, and how you got to where you are now.
Mhm.
So I did read. Are you originally from Tennessee, Memphis?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Shelby County outside of Memphis. Yep.
Tell me about that. What was it like growing up in Memphis? Big music town.
It's interesting because like the music of it, I only like I was so far away from it. Like I grew up outside of the city a little bit. And so
Hmm.
I don't know, it's just like you get caught up in your like little world, like your little silo, like your few little blocks that you're hanging out in with your friends or your family and stuff. And you go into the city, but I was really like I don't know, imaginative child. Like I really,
Hmm.
I don't know. I just when I think about my childhood, I just think about like being outside and like playing and like being in grass and like running around in the woods and like shooting basketball and like riding skateboards and riding bikes. We were just like in our own little world. I don't think we had much context for like where we were, even in
Hmm.
terms of like musical history either. I mean, like we knew about Elvis and we knew about like Project Pat and we knew that Martin Luther King died here. But like
Hmm.
everything was so outward facing. Like everything that we were into was always somewhere else because that's where all the quote unquote exciting things were happening. There wasn't a lot of like, look at where you are right now. That didn't really start to come into my life until like I was a lot older or whatever. So
Okay. Like in school, I'm just curious. Were they teaching anything like that? I mean, were they letting you guys know, like, hey, Elvis was here, this is where Martin Luther King was assassinated? Like, was that anything that, I mean, I'm sure they talked about Martin Luther King, I would imagine.
yeah, yeah, it was always like that was like the big dark cloud that kind of hung over the city was like,
Okay.
anytime anybody talked about like the negativity that might permeate from certain aspects of being here, they always would like kind of talk about that being the reason why.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
in like almost like a folklore kind of sense, like
Hmm.
we're cursed or something like that. Like it was like, and then we have the pyramid here and like pyramid, like we're named after Memphis in Egypt, and that was like the
Hmm.
city of the dead. And so like there was always this kind of dark cloud about
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it was always like this dark cloud of like who we are and where we are. And then
Hmm.
like, I mean, Elvis was always a thing, but like it feels like when you're raised in Memphis, like you almost are raised to hate Elvis. Like my family loves Elvis. Yeah, it's like, you don't like I like Elvis now. As a
Okay.
child, I hated Elvis. And I
Okay.
think like my dad loves Elvis to death. My uncles love Elvis to death, but they grew up in the 60s and 70s. And
Right.
like, it's a different relationship to them. And then like, the other half of my family is from Whitehaven, and Whitehaven is where Elvis used to live. He used to live off Elvis Presley. And
Hmm.
so that like whole area was always like I passed it maybe every weekend of my life. But like
Wow.
wow. I just and still pass it all the time. I still pass Graceland all the time. But like I've never been like
Really?
yeah, I've never been. And
I,
that's
you're still living in Memphis now?
yeah, I'm still in Memphis. And that's like
Okay.
a joke. Like if you are a real quote unquote Memphian, you've never been to Graceland.
That's funny. That's similar to like, I mean, I grew up in San Diego in California, and like all of the like touristy stuff I never really did. Or like when I moved to San Francisco, like I never went to Alcatraz or did anything like you've never been there? And I'm like, well, no, I mean it's there, but I just like I feel like it's so attainable that I'm like, I'll just do it another time. And I just never did.
Like I've never been there. I've been to Bill Street, of course. Like I've seen all the other stuff, been to the pyramid.
Okay.
I never have been to Graceland, but I want to go, especially since this Elvis movie is coming.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I know that looks awesome. I just saw the trailer for it actually. When I saw the new Batman movie with my son and they played the trailer, I was like, whoa, I didn't even know this was happening. Looks super good.
none of it here. They didn't shoot any of it here.
Really?
Not at all.
Oh, they failed.
Yeah,
Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Memphis.
Yeah, I moved to Tennessee recently about a year ago. I'm in South Nashville area. And we drove through like Arkansas and then we stayed in Memphis. But it was interesting because you are in Memphis, Arkansas, and then you go over the bridge and you're still in Memphis, but then all of a sudden you're now in Tennessee.
It's like, yeah,
Uh,
you from West Memphis, and I don't know why they call it West Memphis. It's Arkansas, but
right.
West
Yeah.
Memphis. Um, yeah, it's interesting. Where did you stay when you were in Memphis? Were you downtown?
No, we stayed. It was a suburb. It
Mm,
was kind of like this. I don't know. I forgot what it was. It was really nice. It was
okay.
a really nice area. It's what was it called? Not Sugarland. It was something I can't remember. It wasn't very far off of that bridge in towards West where you climb, you go over what the Mississippi,
Were
and
you?
you're. It's like
Dang,
a
name of it. I don't want to waste time trying to think of the
no,
name.
no, yeah, I'll figure it out later. But yeah, there was like a nice. It was actually the nicest area, nicest place we stayed. We drove from San Diego. It took us 5 days. It was the nicest place we stayed the
Mm,
whole trip. I mean, we stopped in multiple locations. We took a while. We have two kids and a dog. And when we got there, I was like, "Whoa! Like this is amazing!" And there was snow on the ground still, and it was rad. But anyway, well, how did you get into music? Are your family anyone in your family musical? Siblings,
on my
parents?
mom's side, so on my mom's side, my uncle does music, and that side of the family like really musical, or like just big music fans. Like my aunt Shirley, she like has an insane vinyl collection. It's just like walls worth of
Oh
vinyl.
wow.
And so when I stayed with them in Whitehaven, I would, of course, be like looking into all of those books and looking into those documentaries. She had like all these music documentaries. That was like the first time that I like saw Jimi Hendrix and like all that type of stuff, Prince, like a lot of that stuff. But I think for me, I mean, like the earliest memories I kind of have are just music based memories. Like my dad always played music out loud in the house. So like whether it was like 90s kind of R&B stuff or like really old hip hop or like comedy records or like um I mean, like I heard Funkadelic like for the first time as a child, like laying on my floor. My dad was playing it through these big speakers.
Oh wow.
Then my mom, a lot of my memories are connected to music. I remember my mom playing like John Mayer all the time when I was like in middle school. And so yeah, it was just a lot of music like revolving around me all the time. Like my dad really was into Tupac, and like a lot of West Coast Bay Area music
Hmm.
because he was stationed outside of Oakland when he was in the military. And then
Oh wow.
my mom went to Stanford too. And so I got like a lot of California energy and then like a bunch of Southern energy kind of wrapped in together. So when my parents moved back, they were playing stuff. And it's funny because like my dad, I always wondered like why my dad never played like a lot of like Southern hip hop stuff.
Hmm.
All the stuff that I ended up getting into like in the early 2000s. It's just because he was too old. Like by that time that like certain stuff kind of got popping in terms of hip hop, he was like already a grown man in his 30s. And so
Hmm.
he wasn't, he was still listening to soul music and stuff like this. Like we tend to like link on to the things that we heard in our teens and early 20s.
Right. He's not gonna like just start discovering these new art, maybe like not as much, maybe,
Not as
and yeah.
Oz and Biggie and stuff, but like he was listening to Tupac religiously. Um, and like what's my guy that passed Humpty Hump and like all that
Oh yeah, yeah.
Run DMC, Outkast. He did listen to a lot of Outkast.
Oh, that's cool.
Some of my earliest memories were like hearing Outkast on road trips and just like him playing the albums on loop, and then me sneaking and trying to look at the CDs because they had like all types of stuff on there. Like when
Oh,
you,
right.
yeah, that those are some of my like earliest memories of like life. Is like just this Modge Podge mix of various genres and music. Uh, and then in terms of me getting into it, I mean, I started writing poetry and stuff when I was like in middle school. And
Hmm.
sometimes I would write raps to like samples in my head. So like I remember hearing like, was it Bill Withers, Ain't No Sunshine when she's gone or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
I remember like chopping it in my head, like as a kid
Wow.
in class, and then writing raps to the loop that I had chopped in my head. And I will always remember that. And then I just never did that again, right? And then high school comes and like I meet guys who are rapping, my cousins rapping, and I had still been writing poetry. I was just writing to girls and stuff like that, like thinking I was. And then I just was really like, I didn't want people to know that I was interested in that kind of stuff. Cause you got to think in this time, when I graduated high school in 2009, Kanye and 50 Cent had just had that feud in
Oh,
07. And I felt like at that point, it kind of opened the door for guys who are not street guys to maybe think about rapping, right? And
hmm
so it's like after '07, you get like the cool kids, Kid Cudi, more Kanye stuff, Drake, like all of this stuff starts to happen right as I'm leaving high school. And then that's when I was like, all right, Kid Cudi's out here talking about things I'm feeling. Drake is out here talking about girl problems and all these things that I'm also having. Kanye is a super creative person at the time. Like he's like showing up. Twisted Fantasy hasn't come out yet. It's still like in this little like post graduation
uh-huh.
808 kind of vibe. And 808s was a big thing for us too. And so you get that, you get the cool kids, you get Pac Div, you get like Wale coming out Nike boots and like all this types of stuff. This is like pre Kendrick, pre J Cole, all that stuff. And so
hmm
it's like, oh, maybe I can like rap and it not be like a problem, right? Because like at the time it was very much like still street centered. Like if you
Right.
a street person living a street life, dealing drugs, whatever, you should not touch a microphone. Like that was the vibe, and I didn't have any of those stories to tell, and
Or
so
if you were telling those stories and you weren't living that life, it was pretty obvious, or you could call that
yeah,
out.
like how rest of y'all. And so
Right.
like for me, I started doing that, and I mean in the college, that's when I started like making my first mixtapes and like kind of doing that little thing, trying to get a little buzz and like trying to get things going on campus. It was not productive
hmm
at all. And then I moved, came back to Memphis. I moved to Maryland for a bit, came back to Memphis. And then at that point, I was like, okay, it's time to kind of like maybe do this. It was like maybe like 2012 that I maybe like had maybe experienced enough. I think my grandmother had passed.
hmm
Uh, I got kicked out of school in Maryland.
Oh,
Uh,
you went to college then in Maryland? I think I saw that University of Maryland or something.
yeah. That was like at the time I was like on the J. Cole Express path. Like, oh, J. Cole used his college degree to go to New York and got on. It was like, oh, I'm going to go to college and go somewhere close so I can get on. And so
So you had the dream of doing this. I mean, it sounds like that was what you wanted to do anyway, and you kind
I,
of did you have that as kind of like a backup? Or your mom went to Stanford, so obviously very academic household, I would imagine. Like, is that why you kind of were like, I'll just go try the college thing, or?
it was definitely half and half. So my dad did not go to college. My dad went to the military at like 17. He lied or whatever. I don't know if that's a good thing to say, but he went to the military.
Well, yeah, other people did it. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
people were trying to do a thing. So he like
Right,
he
right.
was in the military. He did not. He wasn't maybe the best student in high school. He was spending too much time doing other stuff. I'm very much that, and then
hmm
also like wanting to achieve in certain levels of like at least academia. But like I hated school. I hated school. I'm out of school now. I cheated all the way through it. It doesn't like I was there for art. Like I was in school for my degree is in painting. With
Oh,
a
wow.
yeah, like concentration in painting and then studio arts. So I was doing photography, sculpture, um, photography, painting. Like, I was doing everything, like anything I could get my hands on. And I was also using that stuff for my music at the time too. So I was like getting skills in like the wood shop and like welding and stuff. And then I would take it and then make objects and make things and props and stuff for live shows. And so I was
Oh, wow.
building these two worlds while I was in college.
So
Um,
you were performing in college as well? You already, I
yeah,
mean, or okay.
a few. I started like really performing late 2013, then all of 2014 and on. That's when I first
Okay.
started kind of getting going. But I was able to like buy live music equipment because I was selling paintings, like because I was doing well in
That's
art.
amazing.
Still
Because
to
that's
this,
another industry or another facet of, that's so, subjective. And the fact that people are like, oh, your art's sick. I want to like pay for it. Well, like that must have been a big moment, even selling like your first piece of art. Like, this is
yeah.
something I love to do. And now somebody's actually paying me to
Mhm.
do it.
I always like say it's like the art. is like a little easier. Like I've been drawing since I was a kid. Like that was the one thing I have been doing since I was a kid, was like working in the arts, like drawing and painting and stuff. And then so once, you know, I went to school for that, I tried to go for music, and it just, I don't know how to read music. They in that time period, it was very much like some little racism sprinkles on it, like
Oh,
hip hop
okay.
thing, get up out of here. Like if you can play an instrument, if you can't play piano, classical, whatever, you can't read music, get out of here. We're not gonna teach you, get out. And so I went back to the art department. And for a little while, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. Like, I think in the back of my mind, I was always like, oh, I want to do music more than anything. But like the ceiling, like how far it seemed away, at the time, it was like we were half delusional and then like just half really like disillusioned or whatever. It was just like, I might end up being a teacher, or I might end up doing this, I might end up doing that. I might not be able to do music, or I really think I'll be able to do music. It just kept hopping back and forth. And I was also like in a relationship with a person who was not really supportive of what I was doing. And they really wanted me to like be normal. You know what I'm saying? Like they wanted me to like have a job, steady income, all this types of stuff, and like to figure it out. And so I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to either like make it in music or art and working like it, but then also at the same time, like having some semblance of like normalcy.
Yeah, like stability almost.
It's like trying to blend in with people. Like, oh, I'm in college. Like that was a thing for me. It was like, oh, you're doing all this stuff. Yeah, that's cute. Okay. Oh, you're in college. Okay, we'll accept you. You know what I'm saying? It was
Yeah,
like,
no, I completely I hear exactly what you're saying.
it's like a
I
little
just,
safeguard, like a social
yeah.
safeguard for me. And then at one point, I mean, I graduated and I was very successful in the arts and also pursuing music. It still became like a point of contention because art money is just like music money. Well, not exactly, but art money is, you know, it's
Right, right. It's still the thing. Like it's always subjective, and like it's not like you can count on this paycheck every week, and you know you're gonna save your 401k and this,
yeah.
that, and the other thing, right?
And so thankfully, like I was pretty successful in the arts and have been in the arts to be able to
hmm
fund my own pursuit of music, to even get to where I'm at. Like everywhere that I'm at right now, every leap and bound that I've had comes from art money, essentially. Like my ability to
Wow.
art as well. It's been able to fund like a kickstart, you know what I'm saying? Like a moment where
hmm
you're like able to like put yourself in a room for opportunity to then come to you, right? So like when I first, you know, when I first started doing live shows, I couldn't get booked in the city. Nobody would mess with me. Like nobody liked what I was doing. They didn't, it was weird to them. It didn't sound like what Memphis music was supposed to sound like. So I couldn't really get any support at all. And so I
hmm
was like, all right, I'm gonna sell some work. I'm gonna buy all my own music equipment, my own mixers and speakers and all of this stuff. And I'm gonna do my first show in the garage like a punk band. Like that was like one of
Oh wow.
um, and that was like my second show after I got like really dissed at like a college event one time. Like just people walked out wholesale. Just
Oh wow. Oh, so you did a show in Maryland and it didn't
I
do
was in
well.
Memphis. It was in Memphis.
Oh, it was
Actually.
in Memphis. Okay.
Did a show here. It was supposed to be like, you know, people do all these events where it's like half fashion show, half art show, half music show.
Right, right, right. Okay.
I did this event and basically like the guy he just shafted me, like he just screwed me completely in the sound and everything. And so it was just like a bad performance, but like we just did what we could do with having
hmm
bad mics and bad sound and all this stuff. And I was performing music at that time that would have been very weird to everybody there. And yeah, like people just big swaths of people just got up and left in front of me. And like the messed up part, now I can laugh at all of it, but like people were walking through my set. Like people were like, because where they had me performing was like in the middle of the stuff. And so like
Yeah.
started walking through me, passing by. And I just remember being like, I remember we went to IHOP after that. And I was like thinking I was gonna quit. I was like, this is the most
Yeah.
embarrassing.
How did you have the courage to continue on?
I don't, so I've been trying to figure this out. Like I've been trying to, sometimes people ask me this, like how I've had a lot of moments like that, like a lot of really
hmm
like rock bottom type of moments in terms of pursuing music. And people always ask me like, how do you keep kind of having this thing? I don't know if it's a like a mix of like when I discovered the college dropout or something like that. Like,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, like I think it's like a little bit of that. I think it's the fact that I grew up skateboarding too.
So did I. I love that. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
And so with skateboarding, you never get anything on the first try. It's a miracle. It's super rare. It says something about if you're able to like come out the gate, go to a spot and land this trick first try and roll away perfect. That rarely happens unless you're like super, super skilled. And I was good. I was great. Like I wanted to be a pro skater at one point. And I still fail a million times. Like I would jump down 10 stairs and fall 100 times before I landed the trick. And then I might have put my hands down. So we had to do it again
Oh, sure.
4 times, right? And so when you get used to like slamming into the concrete and landing on rails and falling on stairs and spraining your ankle and splitting your pants and scarring up your back, what is it to just keep going and keep trying something? Because that satisfaction at the end of it is insane. Like when you land a trick in skate, like you land something crazy and you roll the way you got it on film, it's crazy. Like it's like a high. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
you know, for me, I think that aspect of my growing up made it so yes, I'll hit the rock bottom at the IHOP and I just won't talk and I'll be sad. But then the next day I'll wake up and be like, nah, I'm finna do this. I'm finna like, I feel like I'm destined to do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna keep going. And then I'm just gonna take it into my own hands this time. So I'm not gonna trust that guy to handle my sound next time. I'm gonna learn how to do sound and I'm gonna buy all my own stuff because I can do that. And that guy isn't that. You know what I'm saying? It's like I
Yeah.
have this kind of mentality that like if nobody was gonna help me or do it for me, I could do it for myself because I was so multifaceted, right? So it's like, you know what? I'm gonna invite 40 of my, you know, close friends and associates to my garage. I'm gonna like perform here. And this was like, this might have been like 2012. I was like, yo, come through. Y'all don't know what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna perform some records. I performed like I don't know, like a 30-minute set or something like that for them. And I was just like, hey, y'all, this is what I'm doing. Da da da. I would love for y'all to support me, rock with me or whatever. When the mixtape come out, share with your friends, whoop de whoop. Now I just started doing it very grassroots like that. And then I started booking gallery space. So like around the same time in 2013, the space in town, Crosstown, had opened up 2 galleries. One of them you could rent out, and it was just a white rectangle, nothing in it, nothing.
Wow.
You customize it however you wanted to.
That's cool.
Me, that was perfect. Like I was like, I can create a world in here, invite people out, print my own posters and my own little, you know, things, staple them all over the university, and you know, give them to the art galleries in town and stuff like that, and then have people come out. And so that's kind of how it got started. I started like booking this space out every 6 months, like in advance, and having these shows and like doing this big installation based performance. And that's kind of how I got my first, like what I always describe as like my first 150 fans, like the first people kind of started to support in a real way and spread my music out around the city. It was because of those like 3 or 4 shows that I had there. And then I had this thing where it's like, all right, I'm gonna just keep building every time. So it's like, we did this here, let's move into this gallery, this bigger gallery. Let's move over here. Now, can we do some at a museum? And by that time, I mean, by 2017, I was like performing in the museums in the city and like doing large installations and like a lot of stuff with like visuals and like props and like just expanding this universe as I was releasing projects. And so, yeah, not to jump ahead, but yeah, that's
no. That's incredible. And then around what the next year or so is when you put out your full length record, your first album there.
So I put out Alero. So I had put out 3 full length like free albums in 2014. It was like
wow, that's a lot of records in one year.
So it's The Weeknd's fault because The Weeknd
the Weeknd's fault.
Weeknd's fault because he did House of Balloons and then he did like the other 2, and it was like 2011. It was around the same time Nostalgia Ultra dropped, and I remember making the first one. It took me like a year and a half to make the first like December LP project. and I released at the end of 2013. And the show that we had with it, we had like a listening event and stuff like that. It was packed, it like went well. And I was like, okay, I can either do this every year or do this every 6 months. And I remember being like, well, The Weeknd did all those trilogy projects before it was even a trilogy yet. It's like he did all of those. Like, maybe I can do that. And then so I just recorded, did one, recorded, and did one. And then right after that, I started working on Alero, which was my first commercial release.
Okay.
Yeah, that came out. I mean, it was done in 2016, and I just held it and like was trying to get the business of it together, trying to figure out all the things, trying to get my connections and stuff together. Because I was like, I'm not gonna do what I just did last time, where I just released some stuff, and then
there's more of a plan, or like a
we're trying to put together a plan. And I think the market had shifted too. By this time, like Chance the Rapper had come out, and so he was speaking a lot about like independence and like working with like CD Baby and TuneCore and all these types of spots. So I started to see like different ways. Like, we're not really that. I mean, the internet is the internet now, but back then, like, you weren't really exposed to that kind of stuff unless somebody was telling you like that how to do it. Like, Memphis is not. It's almost like, I mean, I don't know, it's its own little world, right? It's not Atlanta. It's not Chicago even. Like, it's its own little world. And people just do things the way that they've always done things. And so until somebody innovates, then you really don't see innovation here. And I hate to say that, but that's just the reality. It's like, until somebody decides we can do this like this and it worked, then you won't see it, right? Like, people won't even think to innovate in that way. And so, you know, everybody just was still selling mixtapes out the trunk of their cars and like putting their stuff on Dat Piff and whatever. And it was just like, I had tried those things and they weren't working for me. So I was like, you know, what can I do? Like, can I go partner directly with a streaming service? Can I go through Bandcamp? I'd already got on Bandcamp, but Bandcamp wasn't the Bandcamp of today. It was different. It was just where you just uploaded your stuff. And if your fans got a hold of it, they did. If they didn't. And so for me, I was like, how can I figure this out? How do I release music officially? And I felt like at the time that was what was going to separate me from all of my peers who at the time, we had all been releasing music the same way. I didn't use SoundCloud, but a lot of them did.
That was a big one for a while around that time.
Yeah,
like Hype Machine was a big thing. And
yeah, I never did good on SoundCloud. Never. Still don't. And so, you know, for me, I was always a very visual person. So I leaned on YouTube. I also leaned on live shows and selling physical albums. I didn't really, you know, like to even put my music online at that point, because I was like, I'm not doing well here. I don't understand this place. Like, I still don't really understand this place. And, you know, I just don't. It's just
no one really does. If you could crack the like algorithm, you'd be,
not good
Bill
with
Gates or something.
Yeah, I'm not good with it. So I can get in front of you. I can give you a show that is special, and then you're gonna want. And I was doing the shows for free, so I would do a free show, and then have a bunch of merch and CDs, and they would buy all of it because I had put on such a good show. And then I would have the donations, and I used to have this thing. It was like, hey, I could charge you $20 to be here, and then half of y'all come, or I could make it for free, and then give y'all the option to donate, and then you give me $50 a piece, or $100 or $150 or whatever you want to give. And so I would always leave those shows with like a decent amount of money to be able to invest back into the shows. And I just kept doing that over the years. And so for me, with the Alero, I felt like at that point in time, I needed to be able to release music commercially for me to separate and to be taken seriously to the people that I wanted to be taken seriously to, which was the industry of the things. And so we did that, and it started to kind of do some things. And then we did it again with Contour.
Which is in the same year, right?
Following year.
It was the following year. Okay.
Online, it says the same year. Because
that's what I was going to say. I saw that on the same year on there.
We had to narrow down for some sample issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So then the next record comes out, and like, what would you say the next like stepping stone was in your career as you kind of progressed?
I think after we put out Contour, like, stuff was much different. Like, it was like, oh, okay, like people started using like the F word with me, which is weird, like the famous, like locally, like people would
Oh, the
like,
F word. Like go somewhere else with that.
it's like, but people started to like, tease me about like being known in the city. And like I started to kind of realize it was like, oh, okay. And then I would have shows and it would be like a lot of people. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
Jesus, okay. And so after a while, we opened a gallery and I like started working on that really, really hard. And so like a dang near a year was about to go by from the last time that I had released the project, and I hadn't really worked on any new music or anything like that at all. And I was like, man, I think I kind of want to do something a little different. I wanted to maybe change my name or do some stuff like that. I kind of thought I got done with like what it is that the Dawn Lifted project is basically. And
Hmm.
so I started working on new music under another name. And then I was like, I don't feel right. So Murfield is a record that's off of Contour. Murfield started to take off.
Yeah, that's a huge song.
Yeah, it started doing well on streaming out the blue. And I was just like, okay. And then so I started getting all of these like fans that were like coming to me that were not based in Memphis and people having all these experiences with the record. And then I felt like I was maybe cheating those fans by not seeing it through. Like they thought I was a new artist. And I was like, man, I've been doing this since I was 17 years old. I'm kind of tired. I want to maybe do something else.
Yeah.
And then but I seen how many people were responding to like what it was that Contour is. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go on tour. I'm gonna figure out the funding. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna go to these top 5 places in my little streaming market or whatever. I'm gonna put
Hmm.
together the money. I got some support, some sponsors, some help, some GoFundMe's. I put some stuff together, got some of my own money, and we went out on tour. And in the middle of the tours, that's when I got like ended up getting courted at the time by Fat Possum. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and so it was like really weird how it happened too, because I remember like we had like 2 more dates left. I think we had just come back from New York or something. And I was like, man, like I'm spending a lot of money to do this. And like it's cool and it's a nice experience to have. And I'm being able to like get in contact with these fans and stuff, the people who've known me. But I was like, I'm spending a lot of money. And I was just like kind of down about it. And I was like, what if I would have kept all this money and then like did something else?
Right.
And then I remember I was driving to pick somebody up, and then like my phone just started going haywire, just like getting DMs, and like my manager at the time started hitting me. I was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? I like opened it up and it was like, yo, we want to have a meeting with you. We want to do this. And I had like some emails and stuff. And I was like, I just started crying in the car, dog.
Oh
Just
my, I would too.
yeah,
Wow. That is so wow.
yeah. So it was a weird thing. And then I remember I did the other 2 dates, like kind of knowing that this thing was happening. And I
Uh-huh.
felt like it was gonna happen. Like we hadn't even had the meeting yet. And I was just like, nah, this is all coming together. And so I
Uh-huh.
just had like a glow about myself, like when we did San Francisco and LA, came back to Memphis, and then it was weird. Like because it became weird because again, we talk about like separation. Like
Hmm.
going on tour as who I was at that point in time was like another separating factor. And I remember coming back and not feeling like I had peers anymore in
Oh,
my
interesting.
own creative scene.
Yeah.
It definitely treated me as such. And so it got really isolating. But then I was like happy because of the deal things. And then we ended up signing. We had some meetings, sent them some music back and forth, made some stuff for them. I made Gold and I made The Rope. And then
Hmm.
I made a few other records and like sent them to them. They were like, okay, cool, come on down. We're gonna do the signing. Sign, and then a week later, everything shut down because of COVID.
Oh my, that's when COVID hits.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Okay. So how did that, was that like, oh my gosh, now we had all this momentum, we got these good records coming out, we just signed a deal, and then how do you even like digest that? Like, okay, now everything's gonna get pulled out from under you. Good
That's why
luck.
I was like nervous. I was like scared. I was like, oh snap, they gonna like pull the deal. Like they gonna be like, hey, never mind. I was
Hmm.
scared about that. I was super scared about dying. That was like the biggest thing for me.
Oh, right. Yeah. Aside from that, I guess.
Like I was just like horrified. Because at that time, like we didn't understand anything. So like March, we didn't understand what was happening.
No,
We just
it
like
was, yeah.
here And I'm in the South. I'm in Memphis. So people are like, you know, Bible Belt type of vibes. Like people are
Mhm.
like all the stuff you see now, like where it's like very much like clear opposition against like wearing masks and like getting
Yeah.
vaccines.
It was weird when I moved here in February, or I moved to Nashville in February of last year. I was like, wow, this is from California. I'm like, this is a different approach.
Vibe. And so down here, it was like, you know, it's hard to get masks at first. So you just had to stay inside. Like you couldn't get them. Uh,
Mhm.
you really couldn't get anything. We like everybody's trying to get hand sanitizer. So nobody knew how to protect themselves properly. And
Right.
so I just was in the house. And as a person who had been working in events and exhibitions and performances and stuff, all for however many years since college, then in the college, grinding nonstop. It was like really jarring to be forced to be in one spot. It was very much the opposite feeling now. I'd rather be in one spot than be out doing. But at that time, it was like really hard on me. It's hard on me emotionally, isolating. Like then you had like the whole world was going crazy that year. So like just
Mhm.
every month, it was like a new everything's about to end. Everything's about to end. It just kept going and going. And at the time, I was like, I mean, my initial release, my first single was supposed to come out in September of 2020. And we were still kind of working towards that, thinking that COVID was going to go away.
Mhm.
Right. So it was like, okay, you know, because you remember what they were telling us, they was like, it'll be fine in March. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. Hey,
2 weeks.
yeah,
Yeah. Like, and then they had like
house again.
Coachella, like 90 plus
Yeah,
thousand people like rescheduling for October. I'm like, oh, that's an
yeah, yeah.
optimistic choice.
I'm going to see Frank in October, and it's just like, no, we're gonna push that back again. And it's like, oh,
Right.
summer comes, it'll get hot and it'll go away, and it did not, and so it just kept going. And so at a certain point, I was like, I was making music and writing songs, but then I was like, all right, this, like, I need to be able to create. I cannot
Mhm.
just be here. I was in an artist residency program when COVID dropped, and it just cut, everything stopped. So like
Mhm.
I had an exhibition opening. I had like some public art I had just done. I had artist residency. I had just signed a deal. Like everything just ended. And so like my creative stride that I was on kind of got just murdered. And so
Mhm.
it was really hard on me. And then you just have all these people dying all over the place. And I feel like I just be feeling stuff. I'm like sensitive about that kind of stuff. I just am
Mhm.
like just seeing all this stuff and I'm just like feeling terrible. And I'm worried about my mom, worried about my brother. I didn't see my mom for months, didn't see my dad for months. Really didn't see my brother for a while until like the summer. It was really tough. And so I started being like, you know what? Again, like the rock bottom thing is like, I was like, you know what? My guitar player doesn't want to come over. They're scared of this COVID stuff. They're taking it real serious. They got siblings and stuff. I'm taking it real serious too, but I got to make an album. So I was like, get my interface, get my MacBook, get some speakers, get my headphones, my cords, put them all in a suitcase, drive over their house, set up on the porch, run a cord into the house, turn speakers towards them. All right, we're tracking.
Really?
Yeah,
So
like
that's how you did the
lot of
325i? Oh my gosh.
a lot of the record got done like that. Like the rope was recorded like that. Like all the instrumentation for that. Gold, and it was a few different records that got done like that.
Wow.
We were just, I was like, I cannot stop. Like, and I used to always tell myself this all the time. I was like, what were artists doing during World War II? What were artists doing during like Vietnam? Like, what were artists doing? They kept making stuff. And
Mhm.
so at this time, it felt like the whole world was ending at that time. And the only thing that kind of was keeping me afloat was making art. I just had to keep making and keep telling and keep getting out what I was feeling. And so I was like, I'm willing to do what I need to do. If I need to run a chord through somebody's window and they track vocals from like not track vocals, but like track guitar or whatever from their couch while I'm sitting on the porch, I'll do it. And so I did it. And then had enough to even write my songs. And then as things started to get a little easier, we started to understand it a little more. I was like, all right, such and such come over, C major come over, MPC, let's put the drums on all of this stuff, put the finishing touches on it. And so it was kind of done in these like little sections. And so
Mhm.
that's why there's so much guitar on the album, because that was like one of the easiest things for me to like work on. Like
Track. Yeah.
stylistically, it was a thing, but it was also like, you know, I can safely get, you know, we can do that. And so for me, it was like I would record my guitar separate. A week or 2 weeks would go by. I would get the drums put on there. We were doing FaceTime sessions for some of those songs. Like it would be me and C-Day
Wow.
on FaceTime. He would be on his system doing the drums, and I would be on my system. And like we would just be sending stuff back and forth through email on FaceTime. And then like I would plug it in and then get to working on it. So it was just like it was a hard technical project to make happen.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like that was what was absolute necessary at the time because we weren't really taking any like we were being very careful as we could.
Hmm.
But it was absolutely necessary that I like finish that. And it wasn't like the label stopped asking for records either. I mean, it was like they wanted the things. We just kept pushing stuff back. And
Hmm.
so, you know, it ended up working out. And it's so weird because I mean, right now we're dropping, you know, whatever's coming next. And, you know, it's like it's Ukrainian things, Russian things happen. Like it always seems like something's happening. But it's
Hmm.
like, you know, that's the world at this point. Like, you know, all these things
Yeah.
happen and what do we do as artists? You know, do we just like sit on a couch and be like, I shouldn't make nothing, shouldn't do nothing? Or do you let that stuff inform, you know, what you feel and what you make? And like for me, 325 was definitely like that for me. Like it's so much angst, so much anxiety, so much fear, so much like self digging also in there too. And that's because I mean, I was every day looking in the mirror, taking inventory on life.
Hmm.
What have I done? What have people done to me? What do I want to be? How do I want to change? You know, and just trying to put that in the record, um, and then share that with people. You know, that
Hmm.
was the big thing for me.
I'm
Uh,
curious. You said that one of the first songs you sent over to Fat Possum, what like you said, the rope and golden, and the
mhm,
rope is the new one that
mhm,
wasn't even on 325i, right?
mhm. Yep.
And you recorded it in that same time period. And what was the why did you hold the song?
So I remember when we first made it. I mean, like Golden has like a certain like um, vibrato to it, right?
Hmm.
So does the rope. It was written from that place again of like I just got a deal, or like not even just got a deal. I hadn't signed yet. I
Hmm.
just was like the option of it was there. So it was like this big confidence booster, this big validating factor of like you've been doing what you're supposed to do. This is not all for naught. You know what I'm saying? And so Golden was written from like that and like this just very like confident, like smooth kind of vibe. And then it's like when you hit that point, and then people smell this stuff on you. Like nobody knew that I was signed, but people could feel the vibe. Like I was moving different.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I was out, you know, when you get the things, you start moving a little careful,
Yeah.
you know, your head is up high a little bit, you feel different. And people
Get a
is
little bit more confidence in your step and a little spring.
yeah, it's like people like, and so with the road, um, it came from I think like a Facebook comment, some guy that I knew, uh, who was like a fan, you know, would come to the shows and stuff. Sit front row and everything. Had like posted some stuff just talking about my music, basically. And I was just like, interesting. And so of course I got like this battery in my back from what I know to be true, from what I know to be happening in my life right now.
Right, right.
I'm like, all right, I'm gonna write something to get my energy out. And so I just ended up like right then and there, like writing just one long verse, um, which ended up being the rope, just kind of detailing like, yo, don't get it twisted. Like I am that dude. Like I'm that guy still. Like I'm the guy that inspired you to be who you are. And so many, and like it's like it was written from a direct thing, but it was broadly broadcast. Like it was sent out in a broadcast type of way of like, bro, I know how much I've done here in this city. I know how much I've contributed to it in terms of the arts, in terms of music and stuff, regardless of whether you want to acknowledge it or not, because of like my aesthetic or like the fact that I talk how I talk or I'm from out here or whatever it is, like, you know, there's so many different reasons to like discount or try to discount things. But for me, it felt like I needed to like let people know before, the energy, came out, like the announcement and all this stuff that like I need to get that out. And
Mhm.
so initially it was gonna be on the album, but as the year progressed and as the album progressed, it became a little more like really, really vulnerable and like emotional, right? Like Golden is kind of like the standard. That's why I said at the beginning, it's very,
Mhm.
this is the only song that kind of sounds like this, where I'm
Mhm.
talking like this. And then the rest of it is all very deep, internal, like rifling through oneself. And so I kept trying to place the song within the track list, and it just felt like I was forcing it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna set it to the side. We'll drop this a few months after the album comes out, right? And there's
Mhm.
a few other records like that too. Uh,
Okay.
that ended up they were gonna be on the album, but they changed the tone of the album in a light that I maybe didn't want to promote at the time. I felt like I wanted to come out and like put, I don't know, I just wanted a certain energy to be like, I wanted it to be very concise. And
Sure. Yeah. It just didn't. Yeah, like you said, didn't sonically kind of work with what you wanted the record to say.
yeah, and there was like a section. I mean, it was supposed to be. I'm trying to remember. I think I was trying to put it somewhere towards the end at some point before we ended up doing Light Figure and like Left Hand Path. Uh,
Mhm.
and I just couldn't figure. I was like, I don't want my album to end like this. I don't want my album to end with me yelling at somebody. Essentially, like, I was like, I don't want that. That's not where I'm at right now. Especially as the year progressed, like I started to connect with different things in my life differently and started to like try to reevaluate the energy I was putting out and the energy that was coming towards me. Because I think once we did announce the deal and a lot of other things started to happen for me, like 2020 was terrible, terrible,
Mhm.
terrible, terrible to most people. For me, I sold a lot of work. I sold a ton of work because people wanted artwork and people wanted things and they wanted to put their money somewhere. And I do photography. So it was like really easy for me to sell work. So I maybe had a bunch of commissions, like a bunch of work got sold. And then like the deal happened. It was like a lot of stuff was happening for me professionally in a space where a lot of other people, they were digressing. And
Mhm.
so I had to be very careful. And I would call the label, like I've talked to Patrick, the A&R all the time and be like, man, like I'm going through it in the scene. Like I'm going through it. People treating me funny. People like, my friends are acting weird or previous associates, people not messing with me no more. Like folks is, treating me different. Like people having money problems and I don't, I don't know what to do for them. And it's just like this weird thing. And you just see like all the stereotypical things that you hear about when like artists start to like get going in a different
Right.
way. They start to separate a lot of like since we can't come with you, you are not of us, and we will also attack you because
Right. Well, it's a jealousy thing, I think.
there's a jealousy, envy, and like a lot of that.
Right.
And I
Mhm.
had a lot of direct conversations with people, and like they would say that's what it is. And
Mhm.
like, but for me, it doesn't change what you said when you said what you said because
Right. Still hurts, right?
yeah, it's still hurting. Like I might have been providing opportunity for you and never said a bad word about you. And so it's like for me to now get a platform and then you feel like it's the time to like attack me because we're locked in the house because there's a virus outside, you know, killing us if we breathe the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, but when we were together, you never, it's like when we were around each other, that always bothered me so much. I'm not the best with betrayal or things like that. I'm
Mhm.
not always those are hard things for me to navigate or have been, especially that year because I was already going through it so bad. And
Mhm.
so, I always tried to tiptoe through 2020, knowing that my life was changing for the better, despite everything that was happening. I
Right.
tried to be very careful, but you can't be careful when it's like these opportunities are so big. Like these are not things that happen for folks here often. Like I always say this all the time, like street rap is what's popular in Memphis. Street
Mhm.
rap is folks who talk about certain things. Those are the guys who are streaming out the wazoo and doing all the things and getting stuff going. From our scene, it's not that much. It's not many of us at all. And
Mhm.
so for one of us, two of us to cut through, people choose up and people decide, this is what we want to represent us. This is what we want to like stand behind. This is the type of artist, you know, that represents Memphis the best for us. And at the time, I wasn't that, right?
Mhm.
And probably still ain't that, and that's fine. But it was a very interesting thing to navigate still being here because I think I'm also like slightly committed to living here. Uh,
Right.
and so because of that, it's like I'm driving around in these streets and I'm going to these stores and I'm going to these events and things like that, less and less, but I was at that time. And so no matter what success I'm receiving, I'm still or was in the mix a little bit. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting to like walk into an event in a party and like you just were in fader. And nobody, you
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like, and nobody we know has been in fader at all.
Right.
And so it's like half the room is like, yo, good looking dog. Seeing you on that, that's crazy. You putting on. And the other room is like, you know, it's like another,
Yeah.
it's another vibe. It's like hard to navigate.
The
Uh
other room's like, I wish I was in Fader.
yes.
Right.
That's really what it is. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's like, you are here, so they're gonna try to tear you back down to their level. So,
Yes.
I
And
mean,
you can't do anything about it. Like that's the messed up thing. It's like people you can just rap. You can
right.
sing. That's all you can do. And you can just continue to elevate, but you
Uh-huh.
cannot ever at any point turn around and then go back down the steps.
Right. Like, oh, I guess you guys are right. Let me come back down here real quick.
You up. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can't
Yeah.
do that. I can't, you know, get on Twitter or something and engage with somebody or, you know, argue or yell or I can't do any of that. It's not a good look. And it just I know what that is. And so I just have to always make sure that I am maintaining control uh and not allowing anybody to take me off the path of you know what I got
Mhm.
going on. So
Well, I
yeah.
think you're doing it. I mean, to move that energy into a song like The Rope, I think, you're doing the perfect thing that's also going to separate you even more. Like, yeah, you guys are hating on me, but then watch me put this rad record out that's just going to keep elevating me even further up. You know what I mean? It's like I said. I mean, that's a great album. The 325i is an incredible record, and I love I had a chance to hear The Rope as well. So
Appreciate
congratulations on all the success, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I appreciate you hanging out with me. This has been so fun. Thank you.
Of course. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I always say anytime I'm able to like talk to anybody about anything that I'm doing, I am very thankful to do so. I'm always appreciative of the platform and folks just wanting to talk with me. So
I
yeah.
love it. Well, I've one more quick question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Whew. Um, don't stop. Just don't stop. Because I think that's one of the main things that separates us is the ability to keep going. I think, you know, I've just seen that like people get a little stride, they get going and they stop. And then the momentum goes and they go away. And
Mhm.
so it's like if you just keep working, like the universe will reward you for the energy you put in. But on the other side of that energy is like meet the universe halfway in terms of like be working on yourself while you're also working on your work. Don't just become a really great artist and not a great person, right? And like, or aspire to be a great person because that stuff is going to come back around. Work on your insecurities, work on your jealousy, work on comparing yourself to other artists. Study other artists, study artist careers, study music, um, study various forms of the arts. Don't just have a narrow-minded perspective. Like, make sure you're happy with what you see in the mirror before you ask for all of these things that come with this stuff. Because we've seen so many artists get all of these things, get more success than I maybe will ever see, and not be secure inside, and maybe not be right, and maybe not be taken care of, and they unravel in front of all our eyes. And that's always like a very sad thing to watch. And I'm thankful that I'm like 30. I'm thankful that I'm 30 and all of these things are happening because if they maybe would have happened when I was 21, when I wanted it to happen, I probably wouldn't be here talking to y'all right now. I probably would have messed it up. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I probably would have done something to myself or somebody else because the person that I was at that point in time was not evolved enough to navigate the stresses and the anxieties and the heaviness of what pursuing a career in music specifically can do to you. And so, yeah, I would just prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, physically for what this work is and just keep working. So, yeah.